This is Joe McManus. We're broadcasting to you live from the Detroit Athletic Club in downtown Detroit, Michigan. On court right now. On the right side of the court, in the multicolored outfit, David Palmer. On the left side of the court, all in black, Phil Wilkins.
Phil Wilkins to receive. Best of 5 games, level.
The referee for the match today is U.S. Squash nationally certified referee Andrew Strasvogel. And we're underway here in the opening round of the 2014 PST World Championship Tournament. This is our third year coming to you from the Detroit Athletic Club. On court right now, the defending champion, David Palmer. His opponent from Wales, Phil Wilkins. That boast catching Phil a little bit by surprise. Mr. Palmer takes the opening point of the tournament. 1-0 to David Palmer. Phil earned a spot in the tournament this week by winning the Friends of the Barn Open and reaching the finals of the Northeast Open. Competed in several tournaments throughout the course of the year. David won the Cleveland Classic, reached the finals of the Bobcat Classic, and also point number 2 to Mr. Palmer.
2-love.
David serving from the right side. David also last week reached the finals of the Tri-State Open.
3-love.
David is widely regarded as one of the most talented squash players in the history of the game. Before joining PST, he won 4 British Opens on the PSA Tour, as well as 2 PSA World Championships. Has an Australian national title to his credit. And he still competes for Australia in international competition.
4-love.
4-love to Mr. Palmer in the opening game. Funny bounce to the back of the court, catches Phil by surprise. It's 5-love to the defending champion.
And out. 1-5.
Phil gets his first point of the match, serving 1-5. David wearing gear from Black Knight. He's had a long-standing relationship with the Canadian-based racket manufacturer. David wears high-tech shoes and uses Ashaway strings in his racket. Phil has a strong relationship with Technofiber and is also sponsored by Live Technology. Phil originally from Wales, now a teaching pro at Live Technology headquarters. It's a fascinating company, actually. They have a squash court in their high-tech building. The owner, Wayne Roovers, loves the game of squash and put a squash court in the facility. Mr. Palmer's jumped out to an early lead here in game 1 of his match. That ball sails off his racket out of court. It's 2-7. Fortunate bounce for Phil. 3-7. And that boast caught Phil unaware. Mr. Palmer to serve, hand out, 8-3 in game 1 of this quarterfinal match. David at 6'3", very large for squash players, so strong.
Contact.
Phil is appealing for the point. I think the referee made the right decision, saying that this rally should be replayed. Well, I think Phil's reaching a little bit here as he's looking for the point. His racket did catch Palmer's on the backswing.
So the challenge is Mr.
I'm just listening now as to the action going on. So in pro squash tour, players are allowed to challenge the referee's decision. We have line judges, challenge officials seated at the front right and front left of the court. Phil is saying that Mr. Palmer's interfered with the swing, but the referee chose to have the rally replayed. Both challenge officials agree, so Phil loses one of his challenges. I'm noticing a lot of players from Racket Up Detroit walking in behind me. Racket Up Detroit is one of the many squash programs growing up across the United States designed to grow participation in the sport of squash. Mr. Palmer now leads 9-3. My heavens, Racket Up Detroit is growing. How is everybody? Well, you guys look great. Is it racketup.org, .net, .com? Org. So racketup.org, RACQUET.org. It's one of the great programs. Pro Squash Tour is thrilled to support them each year with some financial support as well as some, it's 10-3, by the way, as I'm talking. Game ball to Mr. Palmer. Racketup.org, as I said, RACQUETUP.org. It's really one of the great programs. We want to see more people participate in the game of squash, and we're thrilled to have them here joining us for the first round matches. I hope some of the kids get a chance to get on court with the pros and say hello. Back to the action on court right now. It's David Palmer in the orange and black against Phil Wilkins. Palmer has 6 game balls right now to take the first game. One of them goes away as it's 5-10. Mr. Palmer still has 5 game balls in this first opening quarterfinal match of the 2014 PST World Championship Tournament, being broadcast to you live from the Detroit Athletic Club. A very fortunate bounce for Phil, unfortunate for David. 6 serving 10. Three times is a charm. 7-10. Phil's actually been able to fight off several game balls. 8-10. I think Phil feels he's got nothing to lose, so he's going to shoot right away here, and it's working for him. Phil Wilkins saving 5 game balls against David Palmer. There's a good shot. Phil might, in the 2-minute intermission, if Palmer does win this game, he might have to think about shooting as aggressively as he is to start game 2. Oh, that boast is David's going to be able to do something with that. He's really got Phil on a string right now and puts that away. He does not put that away. It just clipped the tin.
9-10, game ball.
Well, Phil must have a lucky rabbit's foot in his shorts on court because he's come back with 5 consecutive points. He's now 1 point away from notching this. And David gets right to it. 11-9 game to David Palmer. We'll be back in just a couple moments after a word from one of our sponsors.
This is Combine Training. Let's go.
Fix all this tonight. Yes, that's what we go over. That's what we did before. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back courtside. This is Joe McManus of the Detroit Athletic Club. David Palmer serving in the opening of Game 2. Mr. Palmer won the first game 11-9 and starts with a brilliant cross-court shot there that rolls away from the wall. 1-love, David Palmer serving to Phil Wilkins. David, the reigning PST Tour champion. Phil earning his first spot in our Final 8. The voice in the background you may hear is U.S. Squash nationally certified referee Andrew Strasvogel, based in the Washington, D.C. area. Phil Wilkins has a tall order today, facing off against the reigning champion. In Game 1, Phil faced a 10-4 deficit, but acquitted himself well with several winning shots in the first game. He actually came back to 9-11. And now has his first lead of the match at 2-1. At the front of the court, David has a trickle boast. Phil has a trickle boast. David found his body.
Oh, you're not charging. Oh, yes, for left. I'd say no left. You're not charging that. Okay.
So Mr. Palmer did appeal for the decision. Referee Andrew Strasvogel denied the appeal. It's point to Mr. Wilkins. It's 3-1.
3-1, right.
David actually was smiling on court, saying he was going to appeal just to keep it interesting. I think he knew what the decision would be ahead of time. A little bit of banter between the referee and Mr. Palmer. Mr. Palmer at 6'3" and I'm going to guess 185 pounds can strike fear not just into players but referees. He's really one of the fiercest competitors I've ever seen and one of the greatest players in the history of the game as he gets that point. What people are often amazed to discover is that off-court he's one of the, I don't want to say sweet, but most generous with his time, gentle people off the court. Does a lot of clinics for Pro Squash Tour, helping grow the game, participation. And at the David Palmer Squash Academy, not only teaches and coaches some of the world's best players, but juniors as well. Working with several college teams and players. He's really evolved into an interesting part in his career where he's not just playing at a high level, but now doing some coaching and help growing the game, and I think people really enjoy his time. As someone who's running a lot of tournaments with David, I can say how much I appreciate his efforts on and off the court. Phil has found some good opportunities here at 5-2. A few shots out of his racket caught David by surprise. That ball catching the tin. It's Mr. Palmer serving 3-5. David has a 1-0 lead in this match here. You can see the logo on the front of the court, Detroit Athletic Club. In addition, there's First American Title Insurance Company. Pro Squash Tour is very grateful to our presenting sponsor. Great boast off the racket of Phil Wilkins. 6-3 as that two-wall boast caught everybody in the room, not just Mr. Palmer off guard. Phil must be feeling very good about a 6-3 lead right here. He started very slowly as David looked every bit the confident champion that he is. But at the end of the game, Phil had several rallies to come back from a fairly commanding deficit. Phil calls his own ball there. Down.
4-6.
Very gentlemanly behavior. 4-6. A reverse angle boast from Phil. David responds with a two-wall boast, and now it's 5-6 as David getting closer to drawing level here in Game 2 of the first quarterfinal match of the 2014 PST World Championship. Both players moving corner to corner right here. Phil, as I mentioned earlier, won our Friends of the Barn Open and reached the finals of Northeast Open. He's a strong player. That ball too good off the racket of Mr. Palmer. Phil catching his breath right there, wiping his brow. That rally definitely worked to the advantage of David, whose fitness has been well regarded throughout the course of his history. He has often worked to weaken the legs of his opponent early in a match, knowing that that would break the match wide open later on in it. Those longer rallies early will certainly work to David's advantage. Phil may be well served to start shooting a little bit early. A risky shot right there, but maybe a good decision regardless. 7-6, Mr. Strasvogel calls from the right side. You hear David having a little bit of fun as he serves the ball early. David having fun because once the referee calls the score, the player is allowed to serve. But most players will, in a very gentlemanly fashion, allow their opponent a moment to get back to the tee. Phil starting to shoot aggressively. I think a smart play for him by here. Low percentage, but that's how it may work. 8-6. David will be serving from the right side. Phil taking a little bit of an extended time now between rallies. Those early, long rallies from David Palmer really will frustrate a player. Match like this early on in the tournament, I'm sure David is looking forward to shaking out his legs from traveling, getting used to the court, seeing how it plays, using all of his shots, getting a good sweat.
9-6.
Phil facing a 9-6 deficit now. He'd started so well so early. But as we saw him down 10-4 in Game 2, we can never count him out. He came back all the way to 10-9 in Game 1, forgive me. Oh, that will be tough. David retrieving so well. Moving well. He'll be representing Australia once again in doubles this year at the Commonwealth Games. Phil catching his breath right now. Yeah, those early rallies really took a little bit of the edge off of Phil. He's hitting the ball nicely, for sure, but David looks every bit the champion he is right now. Yeah, Phil concedes that point at the end, and now it's a 2-1 advantage for Mr. Palmer. We'll be back in just Ladies and gentlemen, we're back courtside. This is Joe McManus. I'm speaking to you from the Detroit Athletic Club in downtown Detroit, Michigan. On court right now, in the orange and black, David Palmer facing off against Phil Wilkins. David wins the first point of the third game. He has a 2-0 advantage here. Phil has played very well.
I know it hit the ceiling for sure. Hand out, 1-all.
Players and referee in the crowd having a nice laugh.
1-all.
A little bit of a lighthearted moment for sure. As the ball sailed out off of Mr. Palmer's racket. It's 1-1 here. As I said, David has a 2-0 advantage.
Down.
That ball not reaching the front wall.
2-1.
2-1 for Phil Wilkins in game 3. Phil playing with equipment from Technifiber. David sporting the familiar black night gear.
Down.
Phil taking that ball early, but it clipped the tin.
2-all.
Hand out to Mr. Palmer, 2-all. David is PST's reigning champion. He is 37 years of age, just turned 37, and his legendary fitness is still intact. He's been extending some rallies early in games 1 and 2. Phil has been looking for opportunities to shoot earlier, but David's picking the balls up. As I said, the benefit of being one of the top seeds in a tournament like this, you get to have a friendlier opening round match. Both players moving well. David getting the feel for the court. Phil hitting the ball well. Now showing some patience. Earlier in the match, he had been looking for some shot opportunities. This rally will definitely work to David's advantage as he looks to extend it. Phil feeling David on his backswing. You can almost see it as Phil's looking to if he should appeal for the decision. Phil evidently choosing not to appeal for that. Point to Mr. Palmer. It's 3-2. You can see on the front wall the logo of several of our sponsors, including the Detroit Athletic Club and First American Title Insurance Company, the presenting sponsor for this year's tournament. This is our 3rd year at the Detroit Athletic Club. Detroit Athletic Club is neatly positioned directly adjacent to Ford Field, where the Detroit Lions play their NFL football games, and Comerica Park, where the Detroit Tigers play their Major League Baseball games. Handout, point to Mr. Palmer, 4-3 here in game 3.
Down. 5-3.
Point to Mr. Palmer again, 5-3. Phil banging on the back glass, a little frustrated. I think he would, well, he's down 2 games to love. I'm sure he'd like to be doing a little bit better, but him banging on the back glass shows how frustrated he is. Both players are playing in the right spirit of the game. Of course, having a lighter moment here. This weekend's tournament is a single elimination event, so players who win this evening advance to tomorrow's semifinals. Players who fall short will be left to doing duties as clinicians. That 2-wall boast attempt, clipping the tin. It's 6-3 to Mr. Palmer. That ball clipping the tin as well. David looking firmly in command of this match. 4 more points to advancing to the semifinals. Phil, who's come back from deficits earlier in the match, will look forward to seeing if he can close this deficit here. Nice ball off the racket of Phil Wilkins. Drives that straight down the left wall.
And out, 4-7.
4 serving 7. The corner-to-corner, left-to-right action is tricking our cameras as the players now settled in on the left wall, but that ball off the racket of Phil doesn't reach the front wall. It's 8-wall. David 3 points away from advancing to this evening's, tomorrow evening's semifinals. Phil asking if the ball was good.
Ball's good.
A little bit of confusion from both players on whether or not that ball was good.
9-4 from the left.
Now it's 9-4 to Mr. Palmer.
And out. 5-9.
Phil not ready to let this one go yet. 5-9. Well, that ball slotted in nicely.
6-9.
6-9. Once again, that ball setting up for Phil, and he puts it away.
7-9.
Very much echoing what we saw in Game 1 with Phil closing up an early sizable lead. Now it's close here in Game 3. 7 serving 9. Phil Wilkins looking to advance to a fourth game.
Not yet. 7-9.
A little bit of cheeky banter here, I think, from the boys. Phil talking during his point, David hitting the ball, saying he won the point, but I think the referee's in control of this one, as is Mr. Palmer. 9-7.
Point to Mr. Wilkins.
That ball skipping out.
8-9.
8-9.
My decision to award a point is being challenged. Okay, point to Wilkins.
I think Mr. Palmer feeling strong now in this game here. Uses one of his challenges, but knows it wasn't going to, the call was not going to be overturned. 8-9, Mr. Wilkins serving. It also gave David a chance to speak to his good friend, fellow Australian Wade Johnstone, sitting courtside as a challenge official. Here we are, it's 10-8.
10-8.
Match ball to Mr. Palmer.
Down.
Ball is
11-8.
down.
Back to Palmer. 3 games still out. 11-9, 11-6, 11-8. Thank you, gentlemen.
Phil, I'll talk to you first, if that's okay. We're courtside with Phil Wilkins right now. For those of watching us at home on Pro Squash TV, Phil, difficult match. First of all, congratulations for qualifying to get here. You earned a spot, having won the Friends of the Barn Open in the finals in the Northeast Open, but a tough draw facing off against David. What were you feeling on court?
Obviously coming here to Detroit, it's been a obviously wonderful experience. So the road's been fun. Obviously coming up against David's been again, it's always tough to go up against the reputation of David's player. Whatever you hit, you know it's going to come back. So in your mind, you're trying to keep to the basics, trying to keep the ball on the wall, taking your opponent's options away. But sometimes with someone of David's ability and experience, even the tightest ball is not guaranteed to be a winner. So happy to be here. Happy with my performance. Happy I broke a sweat. I'm happy he's breaking a sweat too. So, but it's been a fun crowd. Again, it's always a pleasure and an honor to play someone of David's reputation and legacy in the sport. The way he's looking, he's going to be I'd say he's got the fanciest chances going forward for tomorrow's semi-final. So,
You got some fans back in Tuxedo Park, New York, and I would imagine Wales who are watching you online. Anybody you want to say a quick hello to?
obviously my mum and my father, who are sat down probably in bed watching this, so mum and dad, we did okay. Obviously thanks to Live Technology, my sponsor. So to all the crew there, hope you have some stories to tell on Monday morning. You won't let me live it down. So to everybody though, thank you from Live, and obviously everybody from home in Wales. I'll leave it to you, Joe, to finish.
Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Wilkins. David, congratulations. You're the tour's reigning champion, and you looked very solid on court today.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Good to get a win. Trying to get through the first one without wasting too much energy, and knowing the semis and potential, hopefully the final, will be knowing what's coming. So happy to get through. Good to get back on the court. It's been here a lot now. It's feeling familiar. So I like the courts, and it's always a pleasure to come back to a club like this.
We picked you up at the airport just about lunchtime today. As a touring professional, you must be used to the travel and the grind, but does it take you any time at all to shake off the travel, or can you get right on court and feel pretty good about how you're going to play?
Well, actually, you didn't pick me up, to be honest, but...
The tour did. I was here, for sure.
That's okay. Normally you do. I'll let you off there, but it's... I've done it a lot. I obviously sort of prepared this week. We had Tuxedo Park tournament last weekend, and it was only 5 days ago I played Terry in the final. So been sort of pacing myself this week, trying to look after the body, trying to get some more practice in with my guys back in Orlando to try to, obviously, knowing what's potentially coming with Terry, hopefully if I get through that far. So I've been trying to work hard and make up. We had a good final last week, but he was too good, and hopefully I can get through tomorrow and then have another good match with him on Sunday, hopefully.
Well, congratulations on a great victory today. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, Australia's David Palmer. We'll take the briefest of intermissions. For those watching at home, we'll have a word from our sponsors over the next couple of minutes. For folks here live, it gives you a chance to refresh your drinks, and we'll have the players in our second quarterfinal match on just in a couple moments. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen watching at home on ProSquashTV.com, we're going to interrupt our live stream from the Detroit Athletic Club. We're going to go down for just about a minute or two as we reset some of our cameras and our audio equipment. We'll be back in just a couple moments. I apologize for the